In 2020, a company with zero revenue, zero working products, and zero trucks on the road was worth more than Ford Motor Company. $34 billion for a truck that, as it turned out, couldn't actually drive itself. Because the video proving it worked, they filmed it rolling downhill. This is the story of Trevor Milton, the man who convinced Wall Street he'd built the next Tesla, and how one 3-minute promotional video became the evidence that ended it all. Trevor Milton didn't come from Silicon Valley or Wall Street. He grew up in Utah, dropped out of college, and spent years as a serial entrepreneur, selling everything from home security systems to off-road vehicles door to door. In 2014, he founded Nikola Motor Company, a not-so-subtle nod to Tesla, right down to naming it after the same inventor, Nikola Tesla. His pitch was massive, a fleet of hydrogen-electric semi-trucks that would revolutionize the trucking industry, cutting emissions and running on Milton's own network of hydrogen fueling stations across America. Milton was a natural showman. He compared himself openly to Elon Musk, promised pre-orders worth billions of dollars, and in 2020 took Nikola public through a merger with a shell company, skipping the scrutiny of a traditional IPO. On day one of trading, Nikola's stock soared. At its peak, the company was valued at over $34 billion, more than Ford, an automaker that actually sold millions of vehicles a year. There was just one detail investors didn't know. Nikola didn't have a single working hydrogen truck. Here's what made Nikola's fraud so brazen. It wasn't hidden in complicated financial engineering. It was hidden in plain sight, in marketing. In 2018, Nikola released a promotional video showing its flagship truck, the Nikola One, driving confidently down a desert highway. The video was used to attract investors, partners, and eventually to help take the company public. The truck in that video never turned its own engine on. According to later investigations, Nikola towed the truck to the top of a hill and simply let it coast downhill, filming it from angles designed to make it look like it was driving under its own power on flat ground. It wasn't the only exaggeration. Milton reportedly made public claims about Nikola having fully operational hydrogen production technology, in-house battery technology, and binding truck orders worth billions. Claims investigators later found were significantly overstated or entirely fabricated. Because Nikola had gone public through a shell company merger rather than a traditional IPO, it bypassed much of the rigorous financial vetting a normal public offering requires, making it easier for Milton's claims to reach investors largely unchecked. For over a year, the story was the product, and almost nobody outside the company had actually seen the truck work. The unraveling began in September 2020, when a short-selling research firm called Hindenburg Research published a report with a blunt title, Nikola, How to Parlay an Ocean of Lies. The report laid out in detail evidence that the Nikola One video was staged, the truck rolling downhill, not driving, along with allegations that Milton had misrepresented the company's technology and order book to investors. Nikola's stock dropped sharply within days. General Motors, which had just announced a major partnership and equity stake in Nikola, began renegotiating the deal almost immediately. Trevor Milton resigned as executive chairman within a week of the report's publication, a stunningly fast fall for a man who'd spent years positioning himself as the next great industrial visionary. The Securities and Exchange Commission and the Department of Justice both opened investigations shortly after. By late 2020, the picture prosecutors would eventually present was clear. Milton had allegedly made repeated false statements to investors about Nikola's technology, its manufacturing capabilities, and its order pipeline, to inflate the stock and enrich himself. In July 2021, Trevor Milton was indicted on multiple counts of securities fraud and wire fraud. Nikola itself survived as a company, but its stock had lost the vast majority of its peak value, and the $34 billion valuation that once rivaled Ford had evaporated. In October 2022, following a trial, Trevor Milton was found guilty on 3 counts of fraud. In December 2023, Trevor Milton was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. He was also ordered to pay significant restitution connected to the losses investors suffered as a result of his misrepresentations. Milton has continued to appeal his conviction, maintaining that his statements were the kind of ambitious, forward-looking optimism common across the startup world, not deliberate fraud. Nikola Corporation itself limped on for a few more years, but never came close to recovering its former valuation. And in 2025, the company filed for bankruptcy. A quiet ending for a company once hailed as the future of trucking. The rolling downhill video remains one of the most cited pieces of evidence in modern corporate fraud history. A single clip that helped unravel a $34 billion company. The Nikola story is almost a cartoon version of investor mania, except it really happened, and real people lost real money. Trevor Milton understood that in a hype-driven market, a compelling video and a bold comparison to Elon Musk could do more to move a stock than an actual working product. The real lesson isn't don't invest in EV or hydrogen startups. It's this: if the proof a company offers you is a promotional video and not an independently verified demonstration, that gap is exactly where the fraud tends to live. Sometimes the truck really is just rolling downhill. If you want to understand how the biggest financial deceptions in history actually worked, the mechanics behind the headlines, this channel breaks one down every week. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.